They're poorly clothed. They look apprehensive. These are illiterate kids, streetwise and wary of outsiders. While I talk with them, the superintendent hovers in the background. What are they doing here in the room? Are they learning the Quran or?
No, not just the Quran, but they are learning calculations over there. Mathematics, primary education actually.
Would they have had any education so far?
Many of them don't have education, and most of them have left their schools.
They drop out of school at a very young age.
Exactly. They got into street crimes.
Have you talked to 2 or 3 of the boys? Hello. And how old are you?
10 साल 11 साल
11 years.
Did you go to school? Have you gone to school?
नहीं.
You never went to school.
Windows वगैरह ये होते हैं खाना.
A few days he went to school, then he quit.
Why are you here?
इतने में कत्ल लेके.
He is in the murder case.
You're in a murder case. You're 11 years old. Tell me more about that case.
ये खेत थे ना पीछे उधर लड़का.
He said that there was a farm behind his house and he saw a boy over there who was dying. So he ran back to their house to tell his family that, you know, this boy is dying. And they came back to the place with him and they blamed the murder on him.
Do you know what's going to happen to you now?
नहीं.
And what are you learning here?
He's learning how to read and how to write and how to count. He says there must be something from this education.
What would you like to do?
He wants to be policeman.
He smiled when he said that. So I'm going to ask the boys here, there's 9 boys. What do you know about the Taliban?
This boy says that he will join the path of jihad and he will go to Waziristan.
You join the path of jihad and go to Waziristan. Why would you do that?
It's much better, far better to wage a war and to do a jihad, to live this very bad life, which is a very sinful. We are doing just sins. And his brother is already over there fighting with Taliban and fighting against Pakistan's army.
And would you attack civilians?
Because he is not going to do that kind of a jihad to kill public. He is also from Afghanistan and he's against the foreign occupation. He will fight against that injustice actually.
Well, we've just left the classroom, and when we put the question to the boys about whether they would consider jihad and martyrdom, 8 of them shook their head and said no. But the 9th, he said, yes, I would join jihad. I want to join jihad. And this is a young man who's come from Afghanistan. He lives on the streets. He's vulnerable, and in a sense you can understand why he would have that feeling. But it just takes one young person with that attitude, and that person can become a weapon in the hands of the extremists.
I won't go blow myself up, no matter how much money you give me. It's impossible. You can't convince me to blow myself up because I have all the things that I need in life. I'm lucky enough to have everything. Nobody would become a terrorist out of choice. You won't do that. I won't do that. There has to be a reason behind it.
I'm talking to 16-year-old Zainab and a group of other students at the prestigious Islamabad convent school. Like the majority of young Pakistanis, they condemn the suicide bombings as haram, forbidden in Islamic law. And I expected them to condemn the Taliban wholesale. After all, these were children who came from upper-class families. But I was in for a surprise.
They are people. They're Pakistanis. So we can't disown them. We can't go killing them. They're our brothers. They're our sisters. You know, these people have been denied of their basic rights since the time Pakistan was formed. Karachi has been developing, Islamabad has been developing, Punjab has flourished, but this area remained backward. So it's not their fault. They're frustrated. I think we don't realize the oppression. I mean, just 4 hours from here or 6 hours from here, there are Muslims who are deprived of education, of food, of water, of hospitals, and we have to forget thinking that these people are different or they're from a different province. It's not about that anymore.
What about democracy? Democracy is something that works in Pakistan.
Democracy is not just a British institution. Democracy is a part of Islam. Democracy is an Islamic injunction as well. And I think Islam arrived before the British.
So why is Pakistan in such a mess?
The Pakistani government is not following its injunctions properly.
It's not Islamic enough.
No, it's not. It's not Islamic at all, as a matter of fact.
We're not following the Sharia. Sharia is not being implemented in Pakistan. It's actually the British system of justice. Our mentality is Islamic. It's Muslim. It's not Western, but the system we're following is Western. So this is what creates a problem in this society.
Would you be alarmed if this country was run by the Taliban, or would you be comfortable with that?
The thing is that if you look at the era of Taliban, you must know that was not completely bad. At that time, the poppy trade was at its minimum, and after the US invasion, it's at the highest, right? Like, you have to admit that, maybe the media exaggerates a lot to get the big scoop. So you have to understand that it was not that bad. In Pakistan, I've heard this so many times by so many people that at that time, people used to leave their money on the roads, on the sides of street and go for namaz, for praying, and nobody dared to touch it because, the Islamic commandment for stealing is so strong and uncompromising that people think twice about stealing.
Naive perhaps, but here, just as everywhere else in the Muslim world, young people are turning back to Islam, looking for answers. Like the girls at the convent school, the majority do not support violence, but they don't condemn it out of hand either. How can they? Every drone attack that kills civilians angers all of them, unites them against a common enemy.
Hi, Haley.
Hi, Obama.
How are you?
Peacock.
Hello? Yeah. Uh-huh. Terrorists on there.
We find ourselves in Islamabad at a market, and we're meeting up with a group of young Pakistanis, idealistic, educated, upper middle class, has to be said, but they are doing street theater, talking about contemporary issues like the Taliban, like the suicide attacks, like the drone attacks, and they're out here tonight and they're drawing crowds. And speaking as someone who used to do a bit of radical street theater, I have to say that these young Pakistanis are showing a lot of guts to take on these big issues, particularly in this climate.
Hey, terrorists look at करने हैं.
यहाँ ही होंगे.
So what were you doing there? You were just kind of...
The headline was actually that the America is using the latest technology to figure out where the terrorists are for drone attacks. So I was playing Hillary Clinton, and basically I was just playing a game of, pin the tin on the donkey, and just sort of saying, they're probably over there.
Point to somebody in the audience.
Point to somebody in the audience, and Obama sort of like, remember last time there were about 20 people who were killed and it was wrong. It was the wrong location. I said, okay, let me just try another one.
The audience really took to that one, the Americans, how they took out the terrorists and sent in the drone attacks.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what the problem is about Pakistani sovereignty and violation. But now the Pakistani army is doing the operation itself, but the fact is innocent people are still dying. And I think that's what these people are reacting to more than anyone else, because people they know, friends of their families have been affected. People like this in the marketplaces. So.
And you got about, this audience is, one thing that strikes me, it's all men, and you've got about 100 men. Is that normally, an audience like this, you wouldn't get too many women?
Very few, but if you can see there are a couple in the bus who are looking, so you get the odd few, but obviously would a woman want to be sort of surrounded by men as well.
But as a woman, do you get any negative reactions for performing in this kind of environment?
No, we haven't. We performed all over Islamabad, and it's actually been quite positive. You get a different reaction with every crowd, so I've seen that people find funny here, somewhere else they won't find that funny.
State agent, London. हाँ, 4 billion हो गया है. अच्छा, 1 minute hold करो.
Young Pakistanis told me they don't believe what the media tells them and they don't trust their government. That distrust is shared by the audience. Of all the skits, the one that worked the best was this one. It featured President Asif Zardari, once nicknamed Mr. 10% for his alleged fondness for backhanders.
They always laugh at the Zardari scene. He's sort of saying, we need money from the World Bank. And he's like, how much? I think we need 5 billion. And he calls on the other phone and goes, okay, how much is a house in London? And he's like, 4 billion. Okay, wait. And he's back on the phone to the World Bank going, give me 10 billion.
ऐसा करें 10 billion कर दें, round figure अच्छा लगता है मुझे. 10 billion. ठीक है, बहुत शुक्रिया.
Between skits, I talked with an actor. His name is Uzair, and he's from Northwest Frontier Province, one of the regions where the battle between the Taliban and the government forces has been raging.
Let me ask you, because you're a young Pakistani, how are you feeling about the country?
It's a very tough question you're asking. At the moment, the guys I'm seeing from my university, they are fleeing from this country.
They don't see a future here?
Of course, there's no future in here. These days, there's no future.
So the brightest, the best, the young people that should stay to build Pakistan are having to leave?
Of course, they should stay here, but I don't think so that anybody's going to stay here.
What do you think? Are you optimistic at all?
But specifically, if you are asking me, Uzair, I'm doing my career with humanitarian organizations. And nowadays I'm in Afghanistan, in Kabul especially. So for me, I don't get any fear from Taliban.
Do you think that's a split in this country? There's some people that would support the Taliban as a government and others who...
Yeah, because who is supporting the Taliban, they don't know the Taliban, what they are actually doing. If you ask about the Islam, so yeah, I also support for the Islam. But Islam doesn't say that if the girl is not wearing the niqab, so you will have to beat her. Or a girl is not allowed to go to the market. But people who say that they will support the Taliban, they haven't seen anything yet.
Will you leave Pakistan?
No.
After the performance, I catch up with Amna, the leader of the troupe. Was she pleased with the response from the crowd?
Yeah, it won't bring a revolution, no real change, but it enlightens people and it shows that you can come out, and it really doesn't matter as long as you're fighting a good fight.
And what do your parents make of this?
They're the typical upper class bourgeois Pakistanis who will discuss these things. They'll be very well read on the subject, but they'll be very apathetic.
So Amna and her friends are doing their bit, and another young Pakistani is doing his. Hafaz Naman was a madrasa student before he did a degree in civil engineering. Now he finds himself in the midst of the worst refugee crisis since partition. Between 2 and 3 million people have been displaced by the fighting. So he and his friends in an organization called the Pakistan Youth Alliance are stepping in where they see the government is not.
We, our youth, are really the stakeholders of Pakistan. So we should be aware that if we will not wake up today, the future will be really, really very dark.
Do you trust your government?
Actually, those people who are in government, who are in power, they don't care if change begins or not, justice arrives or not. In our faith, Allah said, government must be same as the people are. So, to change the government, you have to change yourself.
So, sitting back is not a solution?
Sitting back and talking and being in talk show is not a solution. So that's why I'm talking to you on my way to doing something.
And tell us what you're doing now.
I'm going 7th time with Pakistan Youth Alliance, bringing food items to internally displaced people in Mardan. It's very near to Sawat. This time we are bringing food package for 100 families.
Families who've been forced to flee because of the military actions.
Yes.
Well, here we are. We've arrived at the camp. It's so new that it doesn't even have a name.
Assalamu alaikum. Alaikum assalam.
Well, there are 100 tents here, and we've been told that 39 families have moved in, and more will be coming. There are water tanks set up, and latrines, and food is being provided, but these are very difficult living conditions. The families are large, and there are issues about the women not being seen in public, and it's just very, very difficult for everyone. And now I can see that the people are lining up the truck that Pakistan Youth Alliance has brought in, and they're starting to unload the care packages. While the military continues to battle the Taliban, the fate of these refugees remains unsure. The government says it's safe to return home, but people here are skeptical. That uncertainty weakens the government and plays into the extremist agenda. This is a country incapable of looking after its own citizens. Whatever happens, the youth of Pakistan will have their say, and the country they are striving to create may not necessarily be to the West's liking. It may be more conservative, more Islamic. The question for the young Pakistanis we talk to is, will this country be more effective? Will it give them the future they deserve? Nima, one of the students at the common school, probably said it best.
It's not about defeating the Taliban. It's not about one party oppressing the other party or who comes out as a ruler. It's just about working for our country now. So it's very crucial right now to decide whether we're going to make a stand or we're just going to sit back. Because we're on borderline and we could go either way. We could either progress or we could be destroyed.